I'm Dr. Troy Spurl, and our podcast is Synapse SNPS. Our podcast teaches people about how the body is supposed to work, basically how we were innately made. Have you ever wondered why you get headaches? Ever wondered why you wake up and you just, your feet don't work in the morning and they're achy, and then as you get walking, it gets better? Have you ever wondered why you don't remember your dreams? Have you ever wondered why you're gaining weight even though you're eating right, you're exercising, and the weight keeps coming on? Have you ever wondered why you're just feeling depressed? It's hard to get up off the couch. If you ever wondered about why you feel these things and why you're not just feeling right, listen to our podcast to get the answers. We get to the root cause and we tell you why. Make sure you're listening to Synapse SNPS each and every week, where we answer the questions that you guys have. Also, you can find us at officialsynapse.com. That's official Synapse, SYNAPSE.com. Hello and welcome to Synapse SNPS. I'm Dr. Troy Spurl, and I'm joined here today, second time on the show, actually, on the podcast, John Richardson. So thank you very much for joining. And a lot of my patients really enjoyed our first podcast. So I thank you for coming back, and we'll build off of that. But for the people who weren't part of that first podcast, why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself and a little bit about your company, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Troy. It was great seeing you back in Tulsa when we were back there together. It was really great meeting you in person. It's always funny when you do these podcasts and you see somebody, you never know what they're really like in person. So it was great meeting you and your wife there. We had a great time. But yes, I'm John Richardson, Jr. I'm not a doctor. I like to point that out to people right away. Now, half of your audience might turn off when they hear that, but the truth is it's okay. It's great that I'm not a doctor, because I can say things maybe because I don't go out, I don't treat or diagnose anything, but I'm a historian. I've got the information because my dad, Dr. John Richardson, discovered on his own this substance called amygdalin or laetrile back in the early 70s. And he had tremendous success. He had originally found out about it through an office manager. And then as fate would have it, our cat, Spooky, got a tumor, and he took it into the vet, and they said the normal thing. All the kids were like, no, we don't want to lose Spooky. But Dad, they said chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery were the answers. And Dad said there must be a better way to spend $2,000, which is a lot of money in the 70s.
Oh yeah,
and have a 60-day life extension for the cat. So he had learned about laetrile before, but he just tried it on the cat, and the tumor shrunk. The cat sprung to life. Its fur came better, and it had a long life after that. But as fate would have it, my dad's nurse, Charlotte Anderson, had a sister who had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She was basically did chemotherapy and radiation, sent home to die, heard the story about the cat, and begged my dad to treat her with the laetrile. And she had an arm that they wanted to remove. And so Dad treated her after, basically having her sign releases and all that kind of stuff, because she had been sent home to die. And again, she responded tremendously. The therapy that my dad used wiped out her C word. And she went back to the hospital, the same hospital she had been originally diagnosed. And they said she was completely clear of abnormal cell growth. And I know your audience knows what I mean by that. But they still suggested, Troy, that she remove her arm. And she said, why? Well, because we know that you've had it there. So if we remove it, it won't come back. And she politely declined, believe it or not. And she said, well, she actually asked him, would you have recommended I remove my arm if this is the first time you had seen me? And said, well, of course not. She said, well, why? I don't understand. Yeah. So years later, my dad saw her at a wedding, and they rushed to each other, or she rushed over to him, and they held each other's hands, and they both looked at each other and got a little tearful, realizing that they couldn't have held each other's hands at a wedding, or she wouldn't be even alive if they hadn't taken that risk. So 6,000 patients later, being sued 4 times, being arrested, his clinic raided twice.
This is your father? He was arrested and raided.
Yes. Yep. He was, just like many doctors during this whole COVID thing. And I got to be careful what words I'm saying. I'm just a lot of doctors were telling the truth about ivermectin, And this is kind of like the ivermectin of the 70s, is the way I look at it. It's something that was known since the 1920s to be effective. It's no cure. There's no cure. You can't just stop drinking water and expect to be cured of thirst. So we know these things, but the science behind it is massive. I always thought when I was growing up that it was kind of like my dad and G. Edward Griffin, who wrote the World Without the C Word. It's a book that sells more copies now than it sold when he originally wrote it. I always thought they were like the only people. They were the pioneers. Well, the whole controversy behind Laetrile and the control of the C word, or abnormal cell growth, the whole start of that was in the 60s, before my dad had even heard about it. So there was doctors already using it, and I didn't know all this, but there was these doctors that were doing studies at Loyola University. There were studies being done in Israel and Japan and Germany, and successful, proven studies. But by the time my dad started using it, there had been no human studies in the United States. And so he was basically doing the studies at his practice by getting people to sign releases, and the results were nothing short of spectacular. And the better his results, the harder they came after him. The California AMA had an anti-quackery law. That's what they originally arrested him under. My dad was just successfully treating his patients. The state of California offered $10,000. They started phone calling they confiscated his files, and they're offering patients thousands of dollars to file a suit against my father, and they couldn't find anybody to do it. They couldn't find anybody to file suit against him, even though they tried.
Yeah, so, I want people to hear this, because unfortunately, that is what we're up against. And many of my patients know that I'm a Christian, and my faith is very, very important. I know we share the same faith. Absolutely. And in the Bible, it talks about how the root of all evil is the love of money. And so choosing money over people, choosing a profit over people, is part of the problem. And people will say, well, why have we never heard of this? Why isn't this like across the news? Because they're complicit. So the problem is, what we've seen, fortunately, since COVID, is people are waking up to all of this. So I want everyone to kind of listen to this, because you said something about how like these councils are made, and they got him because there was a council for quackery. And as a chiropractor, they went through the same thing. And so there was a council on quackery that was made. And at one point, chiropractic was illegal. There's pictures of chiropractors adjusting people from prison. And there was a great documentary called Doctored, where they go through a lot of that history. And what ended up happening is they showed actual footage from the court case of the head of the American Medical Association in court saying that chiropractic kills people. And the attorney said, "Where's the proof?" And he said, "I don't need proof. I'm the head of the AMA." That was his answer in court.
Oh yeah.
It didn't work. He ended up going to prison for it. And chiropractic's no longer illegal, obviously, but it's the same concept. And if you're looking at just getting the truth out, just people need to know there is a battle to get the truth out. And we're not even saying that what we're talking about here is like an all-cause miracle thing, but something that has that level of potential should be investigated further. Yes?
Absolutely. And the truth is, it has been investigated further. It just hasn't in the United States. They've never allowed a human trial at a hospital, but we have had lab trials. We've had animal trials. We've had animal toxicology trials. I have all the documentation for it, because the reason it's never done human trials, it costs millions and millions of dollars, and you have to fill red tape beyond belief, and they'll find a reason why they won't let it go through, because people, it has been attempted several times where they've tried to gather the funds to do it. There's always some flag on the play thrown to stop it from happening. And again, like you said, I was involved. My brother was a chiropractor. My cousin was a chiropractor. I had family members that are chiropractors, and I was involved with the Hollywood. The time that Hollywood was going against chiropractic, you would see a sitcom and they would say something negative about chiropractic. They had to reverse that. There'd be movies about it. And so if you want to just run a test of that, now I know we're hosted on YouTube as well, but just go onto YouTube and do a little Google, a search on YouTube about videos about apricot seeds and B17. Yep. And the funniest thing you'll see, Dr. Squirrel, is that all the comments, the video's negative and talks about all the negatives, but all the comments come from people saying amazing positive things, like my mom took it and my cousin's eating it and this thing and that thing. All the results speak for themselves. And you can't find maybe 1 or 2 comments out of 1,000 that are negative. I had one of my staff doing it. Find me a negative comment on this video that's all negative about the subject. So a lot of the videos that used to be hosted on YouTube have now had to be moved over to Rumble, because Rumble allows the truth to be told. And so that, yes, it's the same exact situation. They successfully demonized B17, made it either sound like it was ineffective or that it was poisonous. And it's been proven time and time again. And regularly on a podcast like this, I'll eat 10 to 20 apricot seeds, because one of the first things people see when they Google search is that you have the cyanide issue. And so I'd like to cover that now. Again, and we may have covered the first time, but the cyanide issue is just a fear-mongering tactic to make you run away from the thing that's exactly what's been proven you should be running to. Cyanide is one of the 4 molecules that's tightly locked in amygdalin. No different than sodium chloride is tightly locked together for table salt. You don't worry about getting chlorine poisoning if you eat table salt. And there's many other things like this, but you have 4 molecules, 2 of glucose, 1 of benzaldehyde, which is very poisonous, and 1 of cyanide. Just like you have B12 is cyanocobalamin, it's a cyanide containing compound. So nitrilocydes, B vitamins, in not all of them, but B vitamins a lot have a cyanide locked into the molecule. So B17, being the 17th such molecule on that chain, was named by Krebs. Now, again, the FDA has never recognized B17 as a vitamin, nor have they ever recognized thousands of other nutritional supplements since the 50s, because no natural vitamin's been approved for or been recognized as a vitamin since the 1950s. So let's get that out of the way as well. But anyway, the molecule is 4 molecules, cyanide, benzaldehyde, 2 glucose. When they come in contact, that tightly locked molecule comes in contact with beta glucosidase, that's when it breaks apart. That's the only time it breaks apart. In a lab, the FDA tried in the early 70s to break it apart, and they were unable to do it. But beta glucosidase will break it apart because it's called the unlocking enzyme for amygdalin. And where do you find the highest concentration of beta glucosidase? You probably know this already, but at a improperly growing cell, a C cell, whatever your audience knows what I'm talking about, that's where you find that enzyme that breaks it apart. And that benzaldehyde and cyanide together are 10 times more poisonous right there at that cell. Now, that would be scary if we were taking a bunch of it and if we thought, oh, there's going to be a bunch of free cyanide and benzaldehyde floating in our system. But we have rhodonase in all our healthy tissues. We have enzymes, and rhodonase is called the protecting enzyme, and it actually breaks the cyanide and benzaldehyde. Again, tested, proven, duplicatable, always found the same way, that rhodonase will break it down and turn it into pain relievers, analgesics. So people that were taking it at my dad's clinic would always find that was one of the first things they found, a sense of well-being, pain relief. They could wean themselves off of pharmaceutical drugs for pain relief. And even if their body was completely destroyed from chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, their end times, the last part of their life, was still much better. They weren't able to reverse it completely, because once you don't have organs, or once you've been poisoned, with chemotherapy, it's hard to bring you back. But he still had a 16% success rate, even with those people that were on their what we would call their deathbed. Yeah, that's the mechanics of how it works. And so Dr. Krebs, even before my dad found out about this, people would say, well, how much should you have in your system? And he would say, if you have the schmancer, you want to get as much into your system as quickly as possible as your immune system can deal with. And that the thing is that if you do too much too fast, you can get an upset stomach. You can get sick to your stomach because your body doesn't have all the other enzymes and nutrients you need to use the amygdalin properly. It's not a worry about being poisoned. That's the big thing I want people to hear. I eat 40 seeds a day. if you eat too much, you can get an upset stomach, but you're not being poisoned. We know this because if there was a single case of that in the United States in the last 20 years, we would know about it.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah, that would have been reported.
Some girl in the Philippines that nobody knows who she was. You do research on her, you can't find any files on her. There's always some story of somebody, and that's the first thing you hear from everybody. I promise you, Dr. Sperl, if I was killing people with cyanide, I would not be doing this. I would not be in business for 30 years. You know what I mean? So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a brilliant design when you look at how. So essentially, just to kind of sum up the major part of this for the people listening, is the B17 basically acts as a time bomb for the C word. The reason why we're saying C word versus the actual word is just because of the video being taken down if we don't. So so the unhealthy cells, it's like a ticking time bomb, and any type of tumor or anything like that can be impacted. But our healthy cells are equipped to basically handle it, and so we see it. It's like a Trojan horse, if you will, for for what's happening. So I love that design, and it's basically, again, not to go back to Scripture, but Scripture talks to us about how the answers are in the seeds. The answers that God has provided medicinal therapy for us. So,
well, if you don't mind, this is on our mirror up front when you walk into our office, and it's Genesis 1:11. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth." And it was so. And continuing Genesis 1:29, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food." That's what we base our company on, basically. The seed, we believe that God gave us every natural answer to every disease, not just the one we're talking about today, not just the schmancer word, but every disease, we believe. And it's coming to full fruition now that people are understanding what God said and what he intended. There is nobody, fortunately, there's nobody dying of a deficiency of pharmaceuticals. You know, one of the big companies has been around 175 years. I won't mention its name because they could squish me like a bug.
Yeah.
One of them's been 175 years, and they don't even claim that they found a cure to anything in 175 years. All they do is keep producing things that take away symptoms, but don't really get at the root of what's causing disease, which is what chiropractic does, and which God's natural nutritional substances does, is it gets to the root of the problem instead of just masking it over and covering it up.
Yeah, and what we're starting to see, though, we're in very interesting times right now. We are starting to see cracks in areas, large companies like that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. And we'll see what happens, how things play out. But again, a lot of things are coming to light that have been squashed, and just a lot of God is just shining light on a lot of dark places. I'll say it that way.
I agree. A lot of people are, sad or feeling scared or whatever. And I say, have faith in God. We've got his ring of protection. And if we, if I'm a person that's rather take God's mantle on and die on my feet than live on my knees, because I won't ever cross that thing. So I'm seeing God's miracles every day. Yes, I'm also seeing attack from the other side every single day, but we're going to win this thing. We really are, with people like you. And we mentioned Clay Clark, who I think is an amazing human being, and all the people that he's helped lift up in this. He's had a battle. He continues to battle. He continues to be sued for this and that, but God is using him for so many miracles. Just the fact that you and I are meeting like this, and this is happening, Troy, all over the place. Doctors are learning these old secrets that aren't really secrets. They've just been covered up, and realizing now, hey, I need to look more into this because there's something here. And so the natural answers are the way we're going to change this whole thing. People don't have to die of some disease that's just a deficiency.
Yeah, and the good news is that a lot of these potential solutions are much more cost effective. They're actually a lot cheaper than pharmaceuticals that are $10,000 for treatments. And so they're very natural byproducts, and so we're starting to see some good changes with that, and also what used to help isn't helping as much anymore. So we're seeing, you and I are talking before we went live here. You were talking about some of the turbo C destruction that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of that right now. Just this morning, I had 3 messages from people who either themselves or family members were just diagnosed over the weekend. And so we're seeing quite a bit of that. And so one of the things that happened during COVID, from both the virus and from the shot, is basically we saw a down regulation of their T cells. So that the T cells basically are part of our immune system that can help people fight infections and a lot of other scenarios. And we meet every day as a team, discuss our patients, and there's labs that we use. We've spoken to the head scientists at the labs, and we have had to create strategies to help bring back these T cells. And it goes from anything from causing vibrational therapy to bone structure to help with that part of it. But what I like about what your company offers is that this is not necessarily going to boost the T cells. This is like an alternative to help take care of what the T cells would have taken care of. Am I right in saying that?
Well, you are. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg thing, or cart before the horse. A lot of the improper cell growth comes from the enzymes not being produced by your pancreas. So a lot of what happens to begin with, so that's part of your immune system.
Yeah.
So overall, when you have a destruction of your immune system, whether it's by, there's different ways to destroy your immune system. We don't need to cover that. Your audience can know that, and be injected by something that's intended to change your DNA and help produce things that ruin your immune system is one of the ways for your immune system to be lowered. So if this disease we're talking about today was caused by that shot, then you'd be like, oh my gosh, my life is over. This is caused. There's nothing I can do about it. But if you bring your immune system up by properly taking care of your body, eating the proper foods, including foods rich in nitrosocides, which Laetrile is, if you do those things, your immune system can battle off the improperly growing cells. The C word is not something you catch. I want your audience to hear me say that. It's not a virus. It's not something you're born with. That is all fallacy. The C word is just a deficiency disease in the proper enzymes, your immune system not working well, and then there's this intrinsic factor called amygdalin that's in 1,200 different foods. We used to eat way more than we do now. Our diet has completely crashed in it because they've grown it out of it. They've cooked it out of it. They've processed it out of our food. So the average person gets maybe 1 milligram of amygdalin a day. So it's not a silver bullet. We all know that. You have to do other things along with it. But as long as you can bring your immune system back with chiropractic, with naturopathic answers, treatments, whether it's vitamin C, are you getting enough vitamin C? Are you getting enough zinc? Because if you don't have enough zinc, Laetrile doesn't work either. So if you don't get the proper enzymes, so you want to have a balanced nutritional plan, and a lot of doctors like you help people figure out what they're lacking in, figure out what they need to boost, and so that everything works well together. Here's the great news. People are having absolute unqualified success getting rid of these improperly growing cells when they understand it's something that God gave us that can battle it. So they just got to feed that immune system all the things it needs, and the miracles then happen. God allows these miracles to happen. We're not curing anything. We're not treating anything. No. We're just allowing God's innate immune system, by fixing the pathways in our spine, by fixing the foods that we're eating, the extrinsic things we're doing, fixing all that, and then the miracles happen.
Yeah, I imagine today's age, and I agree with you as far as the being in a deficiency state, and our mitochondria, which is part of our inside of our cells, which really does help to give us energy, overall energy, but it helps boost and protect the DNA within each and all of our cells. And I imagine it's very similar to the times when they were going onto the ocean over these long voyages, and they figured out how to battle scurvy. where they found out, like, if we have these limes and these lemons and we suck on them at different points on the journey, we don't get scurvy.
Exactly.
And how did that come to be? It's because we have been built innately to fight off disease. And so there's this is a whole other topic, different time, but we've got our flesh and restoring the flesh, and then there's a spiritual component to that as well. And I think this is going to lead to a really great conversations, great changes in both realms, because the old system's crashing right now. It is crashing and burning. And so we're very thankful for people like yourself speaking up and for hanging in there. For how long has your company been?
Well, the company was started by my father back in the 1970s, believe it or not. Wow. And then we kind of restarted it in 2001 or between 1999 and 2000. My brother and I started a company together, and then we kind of separated in 2018 because I wanted to tell the story of my dad and G.R. Griffin that we were afraid to tell. We were afraid to tell it for many years because we were seeing things happen. Now people were standing up for the truth. It's very exciting times right now because there's more of us than there are of them. If we tell the truth in mass and all of us are telling the truth, it's harder to pick us off. And I'm not worried about being picked off. I know I'm on God's team. So yes, basically 2018 is when we relaunched Richardson Nutritional Center, and the market is coming to us because of all these breaking out. Like you said, 3 people got it, told you about this in the last week. I have a story I have to tell you. I had this guy that texted me a couple of years ago and found out about the apricot seeds and B17. He had seen me on a podcast. And so I had him on my phone, and I hadn't heard from him in a couple of years. But like a week ago, 10 days ago, he texted me, said, "John, how long does B17 and apricot seeds stay in your system?" And I said, "Wow, that's a great question. I've never heard that asked before, but my dad said you kind of have to do it regularly every day, just like vitamin C or water or food or anything else." So I said, let me do some research for you. So I got on our prayer meeting with our company, and I told that story and said, "Hey, let's see if we can figure out, if we have any research about how long it stays in." And by the time I got off the call, he texted me back, and because I was curious why he asked that. He said, "Because this is what happened, John. I got diagnosed with cancer 2.5 years ago. I went into the oncology department to be treated with chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, and they said I needed to get a vaccine, or I needed to get the test, the COVID test, wear a mask, get a vaccine. I had woken up to already what the vaccine was, so I didn't want to get it. So I went home kind of despondent because I wasn't going to trade that for being treated for cancer. I wanted to be treated for cancer, but then I saw you on a video, so I started taking it. And then a month ago, I went back to a hospital to get the chemotherapy radiation because they just lifted the mandate to get the vaccine at this hospital.
Yeah.
So he went in to get treated, and they did tests on him, and he had no schmancer. He had none, 0. And he said, "I'm concerned, John, because I don't know what to do now. The only thing I've ever taken is the apricot seeds and B17. This is in my phone, text messages. I'm actually interviewing him. I'm actually going to interview him this week. I got his permission. And I said, "What are you, crazy?" I said, "Thomas, do you hear yourself? God has given you a gift. Why would you want to go get burnt, cut, and surgery if these doctors have told you you're cured?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I didn't know really what to do because I didn't, And then he said, "And also my daughter, her husband's a doctor, and she got 3 vaccines, but she went in to go get a testing, and they said that she's got the gene for cancer. So they're recommending at 33, my beautiful daughter, have her breasts removed and take her uterus out so she doesn't die of cancer." And I said, "Well, for such a time as this may be why you're going through this. Even though your daughter took 3 vaccines and her husband, it's time for them to wake up as well. You need to show them this stuff, and we need to prove this." But that kind of story happens to me literally daily. But this one was just like an active thing that happened. We were praying about it, and he's texting me. I don't have that many people's, customers' phone numbers on my phone because I don't give medical advice. I just tell the story, and I help doctors like yourself have the right information to give their patients. And the key thing that every doctor, including yourself, needs to understand is the only time they get mad at us if we say we have a cure for anything. We don't. God's immune system is what's treating people, is what's helping people fight off this stuff. So if we remember that everything we're doing is helping the immune system, work better, that's the key. And it's really, it's really impossible for them to say, oh, you can't tell that to people, and even though they try, that they really can't do that. So
yeah, and historically, that's all I've ever done. So my goal is to just get your body communicating the way God intended it, mentally, chemically, and physically, and by restoring proper communication and spiritually. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, breakdown in communication, there's dysfunction.
Yep.
And so we, especially spiritually, if you don't have communication there, you're going to miss quite a bit of real important stuff. But we've always we found out that certain people couldn't tolerate gluten here in the United States. Then we found out they changed the gluten in the wheat. We have a general saying, if God made it, it's good. If man changed it, just beware. We never seem to get it right.
Amen.
It comes to that. And so we would pull people off of gluten or pull them off of dairy, and all of a sudden their inflammation would go down. And then we'd focus on making sure they're sleeping. And sometimes we had to adjust them as chiropractors. Sometimes we had to have them change their routine so they weren't watching TV before bed. Different things to help restore how they were supposed to be, sleeping better, eating better, thinking better. Forgiveness is a known component of healing. People who have a lack of forgiveness tend to not heal like people who have truly forgiven. Yep. And so there's a lot of that our entire process as functional medicine practitioners has been to just restore, boost, and help communication with the immune system. So that's why this is a good fit for us, and why it's been like an easy transition to actually implement a lot of the products. So you in your at your website, it's rncstore.com, and you can use the word Synapse if you log in there, but go to rncstore.com and you can use the keyword is Synapse.
Yeah, for a
discount.
discount.
A little bit about some of your other products that you have other than the B17 and the
we have the vials of B17, which is a key. People are always wondering if they can get it. Again, we don't promote it as a treatment for any disease, but if you want to boost your immune system, just like a vitamin C IV or any other liquid vitamin. So we have it, that version, we have it as a pure migdal, which is called Laetrile in capsule form. But one of the great things we're doing is we're putting information up there. We have a physician's handbook that anybody can get, and it's $10, and you get a discount if you use Synapse, SYNAPSE. We also have the amazing book, World Without Cancer. This is one of the original versions when it was in 2 editions.
Wow.
This book was back from the 70s. It's been updated 17 times. The information's been updated. It's getting in our warehouse any day. You can pre-order that book with the discount, Synapse. And then the final thing we have is foods. We're doing a protein bar that's never been cooked, that's completely clean with a probiotic sweetener and has B17 in it. So people that just want a snack and get B17 in their system. Because my dad said, and Ed Griffin said, 100 to 200 milligrams a day of B17, and you don't have to worry about the C word. Ed just repeated that. 93 years old, Troy. He was just on a podcast with me. Someone said, do you still take apricot seeds and B17? He said, of course I do. That's all you need. I'm 93, and he's doing a conference on Father's Day in South Dakota. He'll be speaking for the first time at this expo called Red Pill Expo. He's going to be speaking about cancer, about nutritional answer to cancer. Yeah. So the products that we're offering on the website is all to be able to make it easier for people to get it back in their system. But I would love to have it be as common and easy to get as vitamin C at your local grocery store. That's my goal in my life. It's not like, and I sell to doctors at wholesale. I sell to other people that normally people think is competitors, big companies that want to get this out to their patients, big sponsors. I do business with them. I'll private label. So it's not about me selling a specific product, Dr. Spurl, that I've got a patent to. I don't. This is God's gift. My gift to people is to tell this story. And great doctors like you help me tell a story. And I'm so appreciative. And I so enjoyed meeting you and your wife back at Clay's event. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot more together in the future.
Yeah, us as well. And I've got mine right with me too.
I always have to show up a bigger bag. There's my dad.
Nice.
Yeah, there's my dad. You can see my green screen's ineffective, but this is the 2-pound bag, and we tell people all the time that's at 10 seeds a day. That's 5 months for $35. How can you not You can't say you can't afford it. So it's the whole point is to get it into your system.
Yep. No, we appreciate you having it available so that because I know if you weren't there, it wouldn't be as easy for us to just go get it. So this just providing it for us is a tremendous solution to a lot of people and a real blessing. So we thank you. And again, I just want to reiterate, you can go to rncstore.com and just the keyword is Synapse there for that discount. So we thank you for your time. I do look forward to working more with you in the future. And thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate you. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Synapse SNPS podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast and share the podcast. To learn more, check out our website at www.officialsynapse.com. Until next time, this has been Synapse SNPS podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. This podcast is for information purposes only and should under no circumstances be considered medical advice or a substitute for medical care. Any information given in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease and is at the user's own risk. Please first consult a licensed healthcare professional.